Here they come! Prepare to repel boulders!
Naval warfare in Japanese history is very, very different to European warfare. The first major difference, of course, from our previous titles is that now we're really talking about the age of kind of not sail and definitely not gunpowder. So the units you're looking at are basically oar-ridden boats, in the most part, and they're units that have, of course, predominantly about arrow warfare or boarding capability. And the Japanese used to build their boats around the kind of principle of a floating fortress. So essentially you'd go from these tiny little wooden skiffs all the way up to these giant floating castles, which would fight one another off the coasts of Japan. And that's kind of the next major point, is that the coasts of Japan are absolutely critical here. We've now introduced kind of land warfare and coastal warfare as well. So you're now actually having to navigate around these coastlines and shoals and rocks and beaches, all of which of course can damage your ships and destroy the hulls and eventually sink them, and therefore do great damage to the men and the crew on board as well. There are a number of special abilities as well on the naval side, so we've included things now like kind of mining the area and all the rest of it, which mean that you'll actually get mines bobbing up and down in the sea, and those are basically caskets of black powder which when knocked into go boom and destroy any given boat. So all of these things kind of change the way that naval gameplay is played. You'll also find that the command and control for naval gameplay is much more precise and much more finite. You'll feel a lot more in control of it. It's no longer about these big master and commander style ships kind of having to tack with the wind and sail around one another. It's now very much a case of, because these things are rowed, you can just tell them start here, stop there, and they'll go and they'll stop. So the naval battles in one respect feel a little bit more like the land battles in terms of command and control. And we've got a large different number of ship types, as I've said. All of those, just like the troops on land, get upgrades and abilities which are given from the campaign map and from the Way of Bushido. And of course you can specialise your samurai generals in being admirals. So they don't just become land warriors, they become great commanders of fleets and ships as well. And essentially, all of this is, as I've said, is done to try and make sure that you get a very unique and very historically accurate kind of impression of naval warfare. Of course, we introduced naval warfare in Empire and Napoleon, and Shogun is its third time out. So we're getting a lot better at perfecting this type of gameplay now and making it a lot more fun and a lot more engaging. And as I've said, one of the major features here is, of course, the inclusion of land. The last thing to say on that point is that we haven't yet been able to fully combine land and sea combat, so controlling armies and navies at the same time. But we have got a really interesting and fairly decent kind of halfway house toward that. And that basically involves what we call kind of like a D-Day landing style situation. So if you invade a province and by ocean with a large army, and that province has a navy kind of defending its coastline, then you can send your navy in with its guys on it, and in the first stage you'll fight a naval battle off the coast of that province with the castle in the distance, and you'll be kind of sailing around one another, destroying the enemy fleet. If you successfully destroy the fleet, then in the same turn your troops will be allowed to beach, and then you'll besiege a castle built right next to the coastline, and that then leads you into kind of like siege gameplay and siege warfare. But it's kind of a two-stage thing. So the boats all move up to the shore, men are all kind of dispersed onto the beach, you grab a hold of the men after having controlled the ships, and then you can go ahead and siege the castle. We paid a lot of attention to the sieges and siege warfare because they do make a very distinct difference. So sieges in Japanese times, just like their coastal warfare, are very, very different to their European counterparts. You'll notice siege warfare in Shogun 2 features these kind of almost wedding cake style castles where they have multiple layers and tiers and entrances to the insides and outsides. And these castles can of course be built in various different locations. These all of course have a significant difference and different effect on the way that you'd fight the battle, where you can be approached from, where the enemy might come at you from. Within the castles themselves, you've also got a large number of different areas which can go backwards and forwards between the control of different teams. Now the Japanese used to fight sieges in a very kind of unique fashion. They had a very much kind of open door policy of come on in if you think you're hard enough. So they would literally give certain areas to the enemy and let them scale the walls and the like, just so as they could actually get to the point where they could choke them into a really bad corridor of death or something similar. So it's really much more give and take on the kind of Japanese style of warfare when it comes to sieges and how those work. And it's a very interesting and kind of fun way to play, especially when you consider that you can upgrade all of the different castle types up to 5 times. So if you consider you've got a castle that can be built on flat land, a castle built by the coast, and a castle built on a mountain, and each can be upgraded up to 5 levels, that gives you an initial net of 15 different types of structure to fight over. On top of that, of course, you have all of the weather effects which come in, winter, spring and summer, which also change the dynamics of the battlefield. You have the dynamics of the different army compositions, archery heavy, cavalry heavy, infantry heavy, using gunpowder, not using gunpowder, you know, all of these different types of things. We've done a great deal this time around to make sure that the AI is a lot more challenging, both on the campaign side and on the battle side. So whatever your kind of expertise, right the way from novice all the way through to expert, you should find a level that's pretty challenging for you, interesting and fun to play.